As the years pass, many of us begin to notice a slow, quiet shift. The energy that once returned so readily after a good night's sleep begins to feel elusive. The body that always responded to a simple walk now feels a little heavier, a little slower. It is easy to accept these changes as the inevitable price of growing older. We tell ourselves that a slowing metabolism, stubborn weight, and persistent fatigue are simply part of the landscape. But what if this assumption is built on an incomplete picture? What if the body is not simply wearing down, but is instead sending us a very specific signal, a signal that is almost universally misunderstood? There is a small, butterfly-shaped gland in the neck that governs the rate at which every cell in your body converts food into energy. Yet, for many, this gland is not the source of the problem, but a messenger for something happening deeper inside. The true cause of the slowdown is often hidden elsewhere, in organs rarely mentioned in the same conversation. And until that hidden cause is addressed, the fatigue, the brain fog, and the weight will persist, no matter what the lab results say. You are listening to the Longevity Library, where we archive the wisdom of healthy aging. It is a quiet observation of human life that as the years accumulate, the body's internal rhythms often begin to change in ways that are both subtle and profound. For many, the first sign is a stubborn resistance to weight loss that was once effortless. For others, it is a persistent fatigue that sleep cannot cure, or a vague sense of coolness that lingers even in a warm room. These are not simply the inevitabilities of growing older. They are signals. They are the body's way of communicating that the systems designed to convert food into energy, to maintain warmth, and to sustain vitality are operating at a different tempo. The conductor of this internal orchestra is a small, butterfly-shaped gland nestled at the base of the neck. Its influence, however, is anything but small. It governs the rate at which the body consumes fuel, the speed at which cells repair themselves, and the rhythm of countless chemical reactions. When its output slows, the effects ripple outward, touching nearly every aspect of well-being. Yet, there is a deeper layer to this story that is often overlooked. For a significant number of individuals, the gland itself is not the origin of the problem. It is a messenger, reflecting a disturbance elsewhere in the body's interconnected landscape. To address the slowing metabolism, the creeping fatigue, or the changing texture of hair and skin, one must look beyond the messenger and toward the underlying systems that support it. This is not a pursuit of a quick fix, but an exploration of the body's foundational biology. It is an invitation to understand the elegant network of organs and signals that work in quiet collaboration, and to identify which part of that network may be calling for attention. The cellular consequences of a slowed metabolism. To understand why a small gland can have such a vast impact, it helps to consider its role at the most fundamental level. Inside nearly every cell in the human body, thousands of chemical reactions occur every second. These reactions are driven by enzymes, which are tiny proteins that act as catalysts, facilitating the conversion of nutrients into energy, the building of new tissues, and the removal of waste. The thyroid hormone serves as a key that unlocks the activity of these enzymes. When thyroid levels are sufficient, the cellular machinery hums along efficiently. When they are insufficient, a large number of these enzymes, some research suggests nearly 100 different types, become sluggish or blocked. This enzymatic slowdown explains the wide array of symptoms associated with a low metabolic state. The body's ability to utilize protein, for example, becomes compromised. Protein is the structural foundation of hair, skin, and nails. When it is not properly absorbed and incorporated, hair may lose its luster, becoming dry and brittle, and may begin to thin. The nails, which are formed from layers of keratin, may develop vertical ridges, a subtle but telling sign that the body is struggling to maintain its structural integrity. The skin, particularly in areas like the upper arms, may lose its underlying support, leading to a looser appearance. The digestive tract, which is lined with smooth muscle, also slows its rhythmic contractions. This leads to a common and persistent complaint: chronic sluggishness in the bowels. When waste moves too slowly through the colon, it is not merely an inconvenience. It creates a backlog that can place an extra burden on the liver, as toxins are reabsorbed into the bloodstream rather than being efficiently eliminated. The sensation of cold, especially in the hands and feet, is another direct consequence. Metabolism is, in essence, an internal furnace. It burns fuel, calories, and in doing so, generates heat. When the metabolic rate drops, the furnace is turned down, and the extremities, being farthest from the body's core, are the first to feel the chill. This is why some individuals find themselves needing heavy socks at night, a seemingly small detail that speaks to a deeper internal shift. Even the brain and nervous system are affected. Neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers that regulate mood, are produced and regulated in part by metabolic processes. A prolonged slowdown can therefore contribute to feelings of flatness, low mood, or a lack of motivation that is sometimes misattributed to situational factors. The drive and interest that fuel engagement with life, including libido, may also diminish. Perhaps one of the most telling signs is the emergence of specific food cravings. When cells are starved for energy, the body sends out urgent signals seeking quick fuel. This often manifests as a powerful draw toward carbohydrates, particularly refined ones like breads, pasta, crackers, and baked goods. These foods provide a rapid spike in blood sugar, offering a fleeting sense of energy, but they do nothing to address the underlying cellular inefficiency. They are a symptom of the problem, not a solution. The liver as the primary converter. If the thyroid is the conductor, the liver is the lead musician, without whom the music cannot truly begin. The relationship between these two organs is fundamental to understanding metabolic health. The thyroid gland produces and releases a hormone known as thyroxine, commonly referred to as T4. The number 4 indicates the presence of 4 iodine atoms attached to the hormone molecule. In this form, T4 is largely a prohormone. It is a storage form, a precursor that must be activated before it can enter the cells and do its work. That activation happens primarily in the liver. Within the liver, a specific set of enzymes are tasked with a precise job: to remove one iodine atom from the T4 molecule, converting it into triiodothyronine, or T3. This is the active form of the hormone, the one that cells can actually use. It is estimated that approximately 80% of the body's active thyroid function is dependent on this conversion process. The liver, in essence, is the factory where the raw material is refined into a usable product. This has profound implications. A person could have a thyroid gland that is producing adequate amounts of T4, and a standard blood test might reflect this as a normal result. Yet, if the liver is sluggish, congested, or burdened by other factors, the conversion to T3 may be impaired. The cells receive less active hormone, and the symptoms of a low metabolism persist, despite what the lab work might suggest. The problem, in this case, is not a lack of production, but a lack of conversion. The source of the issue is not in the neck, but in the upper right quadrant of the abdomen. The health of the liver is influenced by many factors. One of the most common and overlooked is the state of the digestive tract. When chronic constipation is present, the colon becomes a reservoir of waste. Over time, This waste can release toxins that are absorbed back into the portal vein, which carries blood directly from the intestines to the liver. This places an additional detoxification burden on the liver, diverting its energy and resources away from its other critical tasks, including hormone conversion. A low metabolism can lead to constipation, and constipation can, in turn, worsen liver function, creating a self-reinforcing cycle. The gallbladder and the role of bile. Working in close partnership with the liver is the gallbladder, a small, pear-shaped organ that stores and concentrates bile. Bile is a fluid produced continuously by the liver, but its role extends far beyond the simple digestion of fats. It is a complex substance that serves multiple functions in the context of metabolism and hormone regulation. First, bile is essential for the proper utilization of iodine. Iodine is the raw material from which thyroid hormones are built. It must be absorbed from the diet and transported to the thyroid gland. Adequate bile flow appears to be necessary for the body to concentrate and retain iodine effectively. Without sufficient bile, even a diet rich in iodine may not translate into adequate hormone production. Second, bile acts as a natural laxative and cleanser for the digestive tract. It stimulates peristalsis, the wave-like muscular contractions that move waste through the colon. A healthy, steady flow of bile helps to prevent the stagnation that leads to constipation. By keeping the bowels moving, bile indirectly protects the liver from the reabsorption of toxins. It is a key player in maintaining the cleanliness and efficiency of the entire internal environment. When the flow of bile is sluggish, or when the gallbladder is absent or not functioning optimally, these benefits are lost. The digestion of fats becomes less efficient, which can lead to discomfort after meals and a reduced ability to absorb fat-soluble vitamins. More importantly for metabolism, the lack of bile contributes to constipation and places a greater burden on the liver. The liver may still be healthy, but without the supportive function of the gallbladder, it struggles to keep up with its many responsibilities, including the conversion of thyroid hormones. This is why addressing bile flow can have such a wide-ranging impact. Improving the quality and movement of bile helps to lubricate the colon, easing constipation. It supports the liver by reducing the toxic load coming from the gut. It aids in the concentration of iodine, and by easing the overall burden on the digestive system, it creates a more favorable environment for the entire metabolic network to function. It is a single intervention that touches multiple points in the chain of causation. The influence of hormonal balance. The body's communication system relies on a vast network of hormones, all of which interact with one another. They do not operate in isolation. A shift in one hormone can create ripples that affect the balance of others. This is particularly evident in the relationship between estrogen and thyroid function. Estrogen is a primary sex hormone, essential for reproductive health and many other processes. However, when levels become disproportionately high relative to other hormones like progesterone, a state often referred to as estrogen dominance, it can directly interfere with thyroid function. This is not a matter of opinion, but a matter of molecular biology. Estrogen and thyroid hormone share a similar size and structure, and they can compete for the same receptor sites on the surface of cells. Think of these receptors as docking stations. If estrogen docks at a station intended for thyroid hormone, the thyroid hormone is left circulating in the bloodstream, unable to deliver its message to the cell. The cell remains in a low-energy state, even if plenty of hormone is present. This competition for receptors is one mechanism of interference. But estrogen also exerts its influence upstream, at the level of the liver. High levels of estrogen can place a significant burden on the liver's detoxification pathways. The liver is responsible for processing and eliminating excess hormones from the bloodstream, including estrogen. When estrogen levels are chronically high, This task consumes a disproportionate amount of the liver's energy and resources. This leaves less capacity for other tasks, such as the conversion of T4 to T3. The liver becomes overworked and its efficiency declines, leading to a secondary drop in active thyroid hormone. Furthermore, estrogen can alter the composition of bile, making it thicker and more viscous. This thicker bile does not flow as freely, and it is less effective at its job. The stagnation of bile further impairs digestion, contributes to constipation, and reinforces the cycle of liver burden. Through these multiple pathways, receptor competition, liver overload, and bile alteration, estrogen dominance can effectively create a state of functional hypothyroidism. This pattern is often observed during periods of significant hormonal transition, in the months following pregnancy. For example, a woman's body experiences a dramatic shift. Estrogen levels, which were extremely high during pregnancy, drop sharply, but the period of readjustment can be tumultuous. It is during this window that many women first notice symptoms of a slowing metabolism. Similarly, in the years leading up to and during menopause, the natural decline in progesterone can leave estrogen relatively unopposed, leading to a state of dominance that can persist for years. Understanding this connection allows one to see a thyroid issue not as a random failure, but as a predictable consequence of a broader hormonal imbalance. Distinguishing between related patterns. One of the challenges in understanding metabolic health is that different underlying issues can produce very similar sets of symptoms. This is why a careful, observational approach is necessary, rather than a one-size-fits-all label. The symptoms of a slowed thyroid, fatigue, weight gain, low mood, reduced drive, are not unique to that gland. They can also be the hallmark of a different system under stress. The adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are small organs that sit atop the kidneys and are responsible for producing hormones that help the body respond to stress, including cortisol. In our modern world, where many individuals face prolonged, unrelenting demands, the adrenals can become overtaxed. This state of chronic stress response leads to a pattern of symptoms that closely mimics a low thyroid. The body conserves energy, metabolism slows, and a person feels exhausted even after rest. This is often referred to as the adrenal body type, characterized by a generalized fatigue and a soft, often central weight gain. The distinction between a primary thyroid issue and an adrenal issue is crucial because the approach to supporting each is different. Supporting adrenal health requires a focus on rest, stress reduction, and nutrients that support the nervous system. Pushing the thyroid with medication when the adrenals are exhausted can sometimes create further imbalance, as a faster metabolism without adequate adrenal support can be like pressing the accelerator in a car with a failing engine. This underscores a fundamental principle. The body must be viewed as an integrated whole. The goal is not to find a single defective part and replace it, but to listen to the overall pattern and identify which system is sending the most urgent signal. The timing of when symptoms began is often a powerful clue. Did they start after a period of intense emotional or physical stress? This points toward the adrenals. Did they begin after a major hormonal event, like childbirth or a significant life transition? This points toward the broader hormonal network. Did they emerge gradually alongside long-standing digestive issues? This points toward the liver and gallbladder. A practical framework for inquiry. When faced with a constellation of symptoms that suggest a slowing metabolism, the most productive approach is not to immediately focus on the thyroid itself, but to step back and survey the entire landscape. The goal is to find the point of greatest leverage, the one area where a small change might have the widest ripple effect. One useful question to begin with is, when did this begin? The origin story of the symptoms often contains the most valuable information. A problem that began after a pregnancy invites a different line of inquiry than one that began after a decade of high-stress work or one that coincided with the onset of chronic constipation. Another powerful line of thinking is to consider which intervention would address the most symptoms simultaneously. From this perspective, supporting the flow of bile and the health of the liver often emerges as a logical starting point. Why? Because improving the function of this axis has the potential to influence multiple downstream effects. It helps to relieve constipation, which is a common and distressing symptom in itself. It takes pressure off the liver, allowing it to better perform its hormone conversion duties. By improving the liver's efficiency, it also enhances the body's ability to process and eliminate excess hormones, such as estrogen. A single focus on improving digestive flow and liver support can, in theory, positively impact the gut, the liver, and the hormonal balance all at once. This is not about diagnosing a specific disease, but about understanding functional relationships. It is an acknowledgement that these systems, the digestive tract, the liver, the gallbladder, the hormonal network, are not separate. They are woven together. A kink in one part of the fabric creates a pull on the others. The task is to find the source of the pull and gently work to release it, allowing the whole fabric to settle back into its natural alignment. The principle of interconnection. The underlying theme of this entire exploration is one of profound interconnection. The human body is not a collection of independent parts, each with its own isolated function. It is a vast, interwoven ecosystem where every action creates a reaction. The thyroid gland, for all its importance, is deeply dependent on the support of the liver. The liver, in turn, relies on the gallbladder and the flow of bile for its efficiency. The hormonal balance, particularly of estrogen, influences both the liver and the cellular receptors that thyroid hormone needs to access. And the health of the digestive tract determines the burden placed on the liver and the absorption of the nutrients, like iodine, that are essential for the whole process. When we view health through this lens, the approach to well-being shifts. It moves away from the pursuit of a single magic bullet, a pill, a supplement, a specific diet, and toward a broader philosophy of balance and support. The goal is not to force the thyroid to work harder, but to create an internal environment in which it can work naturally. This means tending to the systems that support it. It means paying attention to digestion and ensuring that the bowels are moving regularly, relieving the liver of an unnecessary toxic load. It means considering the quality of fat in the diet, as healthy fats are necessary for the production of bile and the absorption of fat-soluble nutrients. It means being aware of the factors that contribute to hormonal balance, such as stress management and the avoidance of environmental chemicals that can mimic estrogen in the body. This is a slower, more patient approach. It is not about dramatic interventions or overnight transformations. It is about making small, consistent adjustments and observing how the body responds. It is about listening to the signals, the quality of the hair and nails, the regularity of digestion, the sensation of warmth in the hands and feet, the steadiness of energy throughout the day, and using those signals as a guide. The quiet wisdom of the body. There is a certain wisdom in learning to read the body's language. The hair that loses its luster, the nails that develop ridges, the feet that feel cold at night, these are not random occurrences. They are communications. They are the body's way of saying that the internal furnace is not burning as brightly as it once did. In a world that often encourages us to ignore these quiet signals and push through, the invitation here is to do the opposite. It is to pause, to observe, and to ask a different set of questions. Not, what pill can I take to fix this? But, what system in my body might be asking for support? Not, why is my thyroid failing? But, what might be placing a burden on the network that my thyroid depends on. This shift in perspective is not merely semantic. It changes the entire trajectory of the inquiry. It leads one away from a narrow focus on a single gland and toward a broader investigation of lifestyle, digestion, stress, and environment. It acknowledges that the body, even as it ages, retains an innate capacity for balance, and that our role is not to override its signals, but to understand and cooperate with them. The path to metabolic health, then, is not a straight line to a single destination. It is a continuous process of observation, adjustment, and gentle support. It is about creating the conditions in which the body's natural rhythms can reassert themselves. It is a return to the fundamentals: nourishing food, regular movement, restful sleep, and a calm nervous system. It is about tending to the garden of the body, not by pulling on the leaves, but by enriching the soil in which they grow. In this view, a sluggish metabolism is not a life sentence, nor is it a simple deficiency to be corrected with a single prescription. It is a complex, multifaceted signal, pointing toward an imbalance somewhere in the intricate network that sustains life. By learning to trace that signal back to its source, by looking beneath the thyroid to the liver, the gallbladder, the hormones, and the gut, we equip ourselves with a far more powerful tool. We gain the ability to address not just the symptom, but the underlying pattern. And in doing so, we move closer to a state of genuine, lasting vitality, grounded not in the latest trend, but in the timeless wisdom of how the body actually works. The role of foundational nutrients. Within this framework of interconnection, the role of specific nutrients becomes clearer. They are not magic bullets, but essential raw materials that the body requires to perform its daily tasks. Iodine is one such nutrient, a classic example of how a simple element can have a profound impact on a complex system. It is the building block of thyroid hormone, and without a sufficient supply, the gland simply cannot produce its messenger molecules. However, the story of iodine is not as simple as more is better. The body's ability to use iodine depends on the other systems we have discussed. If the liver is sluggish and bile flow is inadequate, the body may struggle to concentrate and retain the iodine that is consumed. A person could eat seaweed or use iodized salt, but if the supporting infrastructure is compromised, the iodine may pass through without being fully utilized. This is why addressing the supporting systems first often makes more sense than immediately reaching for high-dose supplements. Other nutrients are equally important, though they often receive less attention. Healthy fats are crucial, not just for energy, but for the production of bile. A diet that is too low in fat can actually starve the gallbladder of the stimulus it needs to contract and release bile, leading to stagnation. Conversely, a diet rich in processed fats can overwhelm the biliary system. The quality of fat matters. Fats from whole food sources, avocado, olive oil, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, provide the raw material for healthy cell membranes and support the production of hormones and bile. Protein, as mentioned earlier, is the structural foundation of the body. Ensuring an adequate intake of high-quality protein becomes increasingly important with age, as the body's efficiency at utilizing protein can decline. This is not about consuming massive quantities, but about providing a steady, consistent supply. Each meal can be an opportunity to include a serving of protein, eggs, fish, poultry, legumes, or dairy, to give the body the building blocks it needs to maintain muscle, hair, skin, and nails. Fiber, particularly from vegetables, plays a supporting role in the digestive process. It adds bulk to the stool, helping to move waste through the colon more efficiently. This, as we have seen, directly benefits the liver by reducing the reabsorption of toxins. A diet rich in a variety of colorful vegetables provides not only fiber, but also a wide array of phytonutrients that support the liver's detoxification pathways. These compounds act as fuel for the liver's enzymatic processes, helping it to do its job more effectively. The environmental dimension. In the modern world, the body is not only influenced by internal factors like diet and stress, but also by the external environment. A class of chemicals known as endocrine disruptors has become a subject of increasing interest among researchers. These are synthetic compounds found in many common products, certain plastics, personal care items, pesticides, and industrial chemicals that can interfere with the body's hormonal signaling. Many of these chemicals, such as BPA, bisphenol A, and phthalates, have a molecular structure that allows them to mimic estrogen in the body. They can bind to estrogen receptors, creating a false signal that contributes to the state of estrogen dominance we discussed earlier. This adds an external, environmental layer to the internal hormonal equation. Even if a person's own estrogen production is balanced, exposure to these xenoestrogens can tip the scale, increasing the overall estrogenic burden on the liver and contributing to the interference with thyroid function. This is not a call for alarm, but for awareness. It is an invitation to consider the cumulative load that everyday exposures can place on the body's detoxification systems. Simple, practical steps can reduce this load. Choosing glass or stainless steel containers for food and drink instead of plastic, especially when heating food, can reduce exposure to BPA. Opting for fragrance-free or naturally scented personal care products can reduce exposure to phthalates. Washing fruits and vegetables thoroughly, or choosing organic options for the most heavily sprayed produce, can reduce pesticide intake. These are not absolute rules, but tendencies. The goal is not to create a pristine, chemical-free bubble, which is nearly impossible. The goal is to lighten the load on the liver and the hormonal system, giving them less work to do. Every small reduction in environmental toxins is a small gift to the liver, freeing up a bit more of its capacity for the essential task of hormone conversion and metabolic regulation. The nervous system and the rhythm of rest. No discussion of metabolic health would be complete without acknowledging the profound influence of the nervous system. The body operates in two primary modes: the sympathetic, often called the fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic, the rest and digest mode. In the modern world, many people spend a disproportionate amount of time in a low-grade sympathetic state. The demands of work, family, finances, and the constant stimulation of technology keep the nervous system on a quiet, persistent alert. This chronic stress response has a direct impact on metabolism. When the body perceives a threat, it prioritizes survival functions over long-term maintenance. Digestion slows down, as it is not essential for immediate survival. Reproductive hormones may be downregulated. The body releases cortisol and adrenaline, which raise blood sugar to provide quick energy. Over time, if this state persists, the cells can become less responsive to the signals of insulin, leading to a condition known as insulin resistance. The body has plenty of fuel in the blood, but the cells are resistant to letting it in. This forces the pancreas to produce even more insulin, creating a cycle that is deeply disruptive to metabolic health. The adrenal glands, which produce these stress hormones, can become exhausted from overwork. This is the state we touched on earlier, where the symptoms of adrenal fatigue closely mimic those of a low thyroid. The body is simply too depleted to maintain a healthy metabolic rate. It has shifted into a conservation mode, preserving energy for what it perceives as an ongoing emergency. Cultivating a state of parasympathetic dominance is therefore not a luxury, but a metabolic necessity. It is in the rest and digest state that the body performs its maintenance work. It digests food thoroughly, absorbs nutrients, repairs tissues, and clears out cellular waste. It is the state in which the liver can do its best work, converting hormones and filtering blood without the interference of stress signals. Practices that support this state are deeply personal and vary from person to person. For some, it is a daily walk in nature, away from screens and noise. For others, it is a few minutes of quiet breathing in the morning, or the practice of meditation. It can be as simple as sitting down to a meal without distraction, chewing thoroughly, and allowing the digestive process to begin in a calm environment. It can be the discipline of turning off electronic devices an hour before bed and allowing the brain to wind down naturally. These are not abstract wellness trends. They are practical, physiological interventions that signal to the nervous system that it is safe to rest, and therefore safe to digest, repair, and maintain a healthy metabolism. The integration of movement, physical activity, in its various forms, is another pillar of metabolic support. Its role, however, is often misunderstood. It is not primarily about burning calories in the moment, though that is a temporary effect. Its deeper value lies in its ability to improve the sensitivity of cells to hormonal signals. When muscles contract during movement, they become more receptive to insulin, drawing glucose from the bloodstream without requiring as much of the hormone. This improves metabolic efficiency and reduces the burden on the pancreas. Muscle tissue itself is metabolically active. It requires energy to maintain. By preserving it, to the extent possible, building muscle mass through resistance training, a person increases their resting metabolic rate. The body burns more calories at rest simply because it has more muscle tissue to support. This is one reason why strength training becomes increasingly important with age. It is a direct investment in the body's metabolic furnace. Movement also stimulates the lymphatic system, which is responsible for removing waste and toxins from tissues. Unlike the circulatory system, which has the heart to pump it, the lymphatic system relies on muscle contraction and body movement to circulate. Regular, varied movement helps to keep this cleansing system active, further supporting the liver in its detoxification role. Walking, swimming, dancing, lifting light weights, gardening. The form of movement matters less than the consistency. The goal is to move the body regularly, to challenge the muscles and the cardiovascular system gently but consistently, and to integrate movement into the rhythm of daily life. It is a signal to the body that it is alive, capable, and needed. And a body that feels needed is a body that invests in its own maintenance. A philosophy of gentle observation. As we draw these threads together, a coherent philosophy begins to emerge. It is a philosophy grounded not in fear or urgency, but in a calm, steady observation of the body's signals. It acknowledges that the slowing of metabolism that often accompanies aging is not a simple, isolated failure, but a complex adaptation to a variety of internal and external pressures. The approach that follows from this understanding is not aggressive. It does not seek to overwhelm the body with supplements or to force it into a different rhythm through sheer will. Instead, it seeks to remove obstacles and provide support, allowing the body's innate intelligence to re-establish its natural balance. This means tending to digestion, ensuring that waste moves through the system efficiently so that the liver is not overburdened. It means providing the body with the raw materials it needs, quality protein, healthy fats, a variety of vegetables, and clean water without obsessing over restrictive rules. It means being mindful of the environmental load, reducing exposure to synthetic chemicals where practical. It means cultivating a nervous system that spends more time in rest and less in reaction, through practices that bring calm and presence. It means moving the body regularly, not as a punishment, but as a celebration of its capabilities. And it means paying attention. It means noticing the small changes, the return of warmth to the feet, the improvement in nail texture, the easing of constipation, the steadying of energy throughout the day. These are not merely random improvements. They are feedback. They are the body's way of saying that the support is working, that the internal environment is becoming more hospitable, and that the metabolic network is slowly, quietly, resuming its natural rhythm. The long view. This is, by its very nature, a long view of health. It is not about a 30-day transformation or a quick reset. It is about the cumulative effect of small, consistent choices made over months and years. It is about building a lifestyle that supports the body's foundational systems, rather than constantly challenging them. For those in the later decades of life, this perspective can be particularly empowering. It shifts the focus away from the fear of decline and toward the active cultivation of vitality. It acknowledges that the body changes with time, but that these changes are not necessarily a one-way street toward deterioration. With the right support, the body retains a remarkable capacity for adaptation and renewal. The thyroid gland, that small butterfly in the neck, will continue to send its signals. The liver will continue its quiet work of conversion. The gallbladder will release its bile in response to meals. The hormones will ebb and flow in their intricate dance. Our role is not to control this process, but to create the conditions in which it can unfold with grace and efficiency. It is to listen, to observe, and to respond with gentle, intelligent support. And in doing so, to move through the later years not with a sense of inevitable loss, but with a quiet confidence in the body's enduring wisdom. The single most important takeaway from everything we have explored is this: a slowing metabolism is rarely a failure of one small gland, but a message from a network of organs working together, asking for a different kind of attention. The body is not a collection of isolated parts. It is a vast, interconnected landscape, and the path to vitality lies in understanding the terrain. If this reflection has sparked a new thought or a new question about your own health, we would be honored if you shared it in the comments. Your insights become part of the library for others on the same journey. And if you would like to continue exploring the quiet wisdom of healthy aging, we invite you to browse the other volumes in our collection and subscribe, so you never miss a new chapter. This is the Longevity Library. Listen, learn, and live longer.